gang. Hey, nothing but love and respect. You might have some cool fans, but mine are the best. We've been through it all, went to war when duty called. Never left a man behind, we move as one is super strong. I don't want followers, that implies I'm the leader. I'm not the captain, I just gave them something they can believe in. I hold the lamp in the darkness, but they're the light that I needed to see the road that we walk in between the angels and demons. And my fans have my back. Hate us if your feelings don't like facts. And my fans will fight back. Beat you with the keyboard you've been using to write back. I guess we need each other like both sides of the battery. We the army, we the homies, we the gang, we the cavalry. We're brothers and sisters, we hold it down like we gravity. Can't nobody break the bond that made us all family.
Me and my fans, we don't care what anybody say. Middle fingers to whoever in the way, man. Me and my fans, we gon' be together to the grave. It's the game till forever and a day, man. Me and my fans, we don't even trip in the hate. We got all the fuck in our veins, man. Me and my fans,
We the hangover gang. Gang, 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 gang.
Oklahoma weather can dish out some of the worst punishment in the world. Hi everyone, I'm meteorologist Tuttle. But now you can fight back by installing Class 4 impact-resistant shingles from Ferguson Roof Systems. These shingles can withstand large hail, heavy rain, and hurricane-force winds, all while keeping your home safe and dry. And the best part? This upgrade is completely free for many homeowners. So call today to start reaping the benefits these Class 4 shingles bring, including a discount on home insurance. Only at FergusonRoofSystems.com.
Hey there, meteorologist Tuttle, back with you again. It's about a quarter till noon. We're going to do a live update here to talk about the severe weather threat for this afternoon and this evening. More really late afternoon, so it's more likely it's kind of an evening category. So if you watched my live last night, we kind of discussed this, and then today will kind of be a pickup from that. So you have to pardon me here as I'm multitasking on a bunch of other things. All right, got to do everything all at once, because that's just the way it is. So I'll give you a second to get acclimated. Take your time. I know I am, because I gotta hit all these buttons. Let's see. You know, in the news media, we call it a one-man band. So it's no different here. So that's kind of what's happening right now. So gotta do all these hashtags and gotta make all this social media posts all at the same time. So, because it's my lunch break, just like it's your lunch break. So got lots to do. All right. So where are we? Let me see here. Make sure everything's running. Oh yeah, on Facebook, you guys post the video here for you. So if you want to get live notified directly from me through your messenger, you can tap this little link that I've got on here. I've got a few hundred of you that do sign up for this. Just make sure you hit manage messages after every so often, so that it'll keep you notified. Let's see. Make sure you guys on Twitter are there. See if you're checking in, and also on YouTube. So yep, you guys are out there, it's good. So, and YouTube. All right, so everything's going good. So last night I broadcast for the first time live on Rumble. They've still got some quirks to work out, which I figured. So I found one of them here at noon, which is why I'm having to do all this other stuff going on. So I won't be live on Rumble here for noon, obviously, but it will update the video once I'm finished. I don't know how long that takes. It's all automatic. But they assured me when I went live it would be an easy, seamless process, and no, it wasn't. Of course not. So I got to send an email out and figure out what's going on with that. But we'll get that up and running here eventually, so you can watch me on Rumble if you don't want to watch on YouTube or Facebook. Or maybe you guys will have a divorce. Maybe you will no longer be in a relationship with YouTube, or you'll no longer be in a relationship with Twitter or Facebook. Well, then you can join on Rumble. I'm trying to reach as many of you as I can. All right, so let's see. With all that said and done, let's get on to action, shall we? So you kind of know the deal. Severe weather season starts roughly mid-March and lasts about mid-June, and we do talk about the risk of tornadoes and that kind of stuff this time of the year. We do have some clouds that have worked on in, so you've noticed that clouds continue to increase as some moisture returns, both in the mid and upper levels, and also eventually here the low levels. We'll share that here as well. Right now I'm at 70 degrees in my backyard, so it's a nice warm, mild day. It's going to be a little bit more on the humid side. It's taking some time now. Humidity slowly creeping up there, and I'll show you the big picture here, which indicates the satellite showing you some low-level moisture down here in Texas, this little white area here. That's a really deep low-level moisture working its way northward, so it's going to take all day to cross Red River. What we have here is this mid and upper level cloudiness and advance to the next storm system in the upper levels from that energy. So what that's going to do is combine over North Texas and Oklahoma to produce a threat of severe weather. So this is a slight risk here in yellow across southern Oklahoma on down south into Louisiana. And when you break this thing down, Storm Prediction Center, remember last night there was only a tornado risk down here. And remember last night I drew you one where? Right about where they drew theirs for today. So they have included a little weak tornado risk here for southern Oklahoma and North Texas. So it does include, believe it or not, barely, but barely, the Oklahoma City metro area and points southward into just barely into Dallas. So right in between the two. And we'll show you where the most favorable area is a little bit later. Wind threat is also in that same zone, and the hail threat as well in that same pocket, where there's going to be, looking at a lot of the data, I like the idea of hail sizes around an inch to golf ball for the most part, but I do see a few storms getting out of control, which will probably produce hail up to 2 inches in diameter. But those will be few and far between, I think, compared to the majority of the hailstones that will come down. Now, here's a close-up view of those graphics, which does show you the risk of severe weather here across southern Oklahoma, which includes Lawton, Ardmore, and Durant. When you're talking about the tornado threat, remember it does barely include Oklahoma City and points down the south to right around Lawton. Last night on the map, I think I drew you the favored sweet spot about like this is what I think I did for you. So if you can tell, that kind of is in that little zone. So we'll see if that has changed in the data today. Meanwhile, in southeast Oklahoma, same idea. Threat of severe weather down across the far southern counties. But it'll be late tonight, so that means the magnitude of the storms should weaken quite a bit. Little NATO cast was actually pretty cool. I follow these guys on Twitter. And they've got the little highlighted sweet spot right about where I drew it last night. So how about that? So their little algorithms here are detecting a little bit of a better risk for tornadoes in this region here for southern Oklahoma. Doesn't mean you can't have them in the rest of the parts of Oklahoma, and I'll show you why here in a second, but that seems to be where the best ingredients are. Now, if we do look at what we call the significant tornado parameter, it does show up right along the I-35 corridor here. So this is Oklahoma City, and Canadian County, Oklahoma County, right here in the middle. So down south, pretty much right along I-35 and points west a little bit, seems to be the hot spot here, and that extends down to Dallas, where you got the best ingredients through late evening. So this is, and then it kind of moves off into southeastern Oklahoma by around 10 o'clock, and it weakens. And you see those colors drop down on the scale from these little green areas back down to the lower blue areas. So that means that the threat weakens with time. Every hour we go, pretty much after 10 o'clock. To 11 o'clock to midnight, it starts dropping off dramatically. Now, the upper level storm system by this afternoon and evening will be out here across western Oklahoma. So what can happen sometimes? I didn't discuss this last night. I probably should have. But close to the center of the upper low, when it tracks, it'll track up like this during the evening hours. You can sometimes, there's a lot of shear, a lot of turning with height in the atmosphere, closer to the center of the upper low. So you can get a low top supercell that'll develop and produce a tornado out of this. But whereas most of the other ingredients, it's more of a freak deal, whereas most, and usually very weak, but most of the other ingredients will be down into this favored region here. But I just want to throw that out there. We're going to see that in the data here in just a minute. Now, if we look at what we call the theta E axis, this is kind of be where you have the best heat and moisture combined. Like, think of like a ribbon of instability. Well, that ribbon of instability runs right up central Texas here into southern Oklahoma with the leading edge, coming right here into basically Comanche County and Lawton. So this is kind of where things ought to get fired up, because the storm should fire along this ribbon of instability. So this is called the theta E axis. So when you have a very weak cap to non-existing cap, this is one of those boundaries that you look for to focus storms, because you have to have a kicker. You have to have something to trigger those storms with, and it looks like that will be the case as we head into the evening. And that axis doesn't really change any. There's 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. It still stays over southern Oklahoma and North Texas, and then as we head to midnight, it's starting to move east into southeast Oklahoma. By then, everything else is falling apart. Now, when we look at let's just call the pure moisture in the atmosphere, so the dew point values. Dew point values, if they're in the 50s, it's very marginal for tornadoes, all right? When they get into the 60s, that's when the tornado genesis is much more likely, more favorable, and then once they get into like the 70s, those type of environments, very chaotic. All right, so here's a look at 7 o'clock, for example. We do have a mesolow, which is a surface low pressure area. What you want to focus on when that happens is the winds out ahead of this low come in to the low. So they kind of come in and they turn back around, right? So what happens is you get a southeasterly to easterly component in the surface winds. And when you get a storm that, say, develops in this region here, and it moves to like the east-northeast kind of a fashion, it's ingesting those east to southeast surface winds as it moves in that direction. Well, that increases the low-level shear, which increases the threat for tornadoes, which is why I really favored this area down here in southern Oklahoma because of that fact. And this little region here, this little low, will kind of slowly work its way to the east-northeast with time, taking that favorable axis with it between, say, 6 p.m. at midnight, between 44 around the Lawton area and then 35, I-35 there east. Now, if we look at the shear, we overlaid it, so the bigger on this map, the bigger the triangle that you see is the bigger the wind departure from the surface as we go up through height. It's like a staircase, like you're going around a staircase. This is just looking at it a flat dimensional view, but we can see here we have a southeast wind at this point. This is Lawton, by the way, this little point right here. And then we go to the mid-levels atmosphere, we have a southwest wind. So that's a nice spread of the wind directions. We call it shear, turning with height. If we focus I'll just click here. We have 1,300, looks like joules of CAPE, which is plenty of instability. So in this particular case, it has a possible hazard type of a marginal tornado. It does have the shear turning with height, so there's that surface wind. As we go up with height on this map here, you can see the winds turn from a southeast to a south to a southwest direction. And then you see plenty of instability here, very little cap, if any. So this is just a 1-point sample, just kind of give you an idea of what potentially is on the table. And if I were to pick different sweet spots down here, I'd get different values, different CAPE values, different wind shear values, but the point is it's all the same idea. All right, so let's move on then to the next ingredient list. Let's see what I got here for you. Okay, so this is where we're going to talk about the potential for how things may evolve. This is where we get into the trouble if you try to get too specific with a certain model, because I've got several to pick from, and they all have a slightly different look to them as far as the output goes. As far as where the heaviest storms are going to be, which ones may produce tornadoes, all that kind of stuff. The models are going to be that good. So what we do is just look at the bigger picture. So right now, by 7 o'clock, so here's 6 o'clock here. So from 6 to 7 is when things ought to fire up. Now this particular model favors this area west of Lawton, probably up through I-40 here in the western Oklahoma. It also favors some storms developing down here in Wichita Falls and points east from there. And of course you got the heavy rain up here north. Don't even worry about it. You guys in northern Oklahoma, don't worry about it. All right, you're just going to get some beneficial rainfall. We're talking the threat for southern Oklahoma, and I'll show you out here to the west in a moment. Now this particular model likes to get it more of a squall line type of appearance early on. So there's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So what that means is it has kind of this little S-shaped look to it. So that typically means you have more damaging wind that comes in. You will get pockets of hail, heavy rain on the north side, more damaging wind here in the central and south side of it. And then on the tail end side, watch out for tornadoes. So this is kind of like usually how this pattern will evolve. And this is 9 o'clock. So you can already see storms moving through the greater Oklahoma City metro area by 9 o'clock this evening through 10 o'clock. And yes, you do see some helicity tracks to indicate some pockets of wind and some hail within this. Last night I talked about you might get a QLCS, which is like a baby tornado, along the leading edge of these little mini squall lines. So that is possible. Those will be very weak, short-lived, but that here is included in the central Oklahoma. That does include the Oklahoma City metro area. It's just for more supercell, stronger type tornadoes. Those are more favored down south than they are here in Oklahoma City. But maybe this is say that's 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and this line continues to move east. But by then, it's starting to weaken. So after midnight here, this line, as it bows out, we call it, you see how it's bowing out quite a bit. A lot of that compacted energy over a small area is now expanding over a larger area. So what that means is that's a lot of energy you have to spread out over a much greater distance. So that means everything weakens, and it's just a glorified rainstorm at that point as it moves through Tulsa and points to the east at 2 and 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay. The other very high resolution short-term model that we use for severe weather, let me see if it's gone. The latest one hasn't finished coming in, so we'll do this one. The difference in how it looks compared to the other one, the take-home. All right, so let's go up to, there's 6 o'clock, and then there's 7 o'clock, or 8 o'clock. Let me go back to 7. So there's 7 o'clock. So there's a big difference here between those two models, right? This one really favored southern Oklahoma to develop storms scattered from Oklahoma City down south, and a big break here southwest, and then this new guy is showing up here. Now the difference here is that this is way early to be in this position I-35. They're supposed to be back here. So I have my doubts as to whether or not this model is even or close to being accurate on both position. The timeline I don't have a problem with, but even the structure of how the storms look ridiculous down here in southern Oklahoma. I just don't buy it. But what I do want to show you is closer. Remember the upper level low that was moving in from around here, moving up to this region. Now, if you do notice with the timing, this little guy here, this tail end storm on the path of this upper low has a little bit of a helicity track to it. So what that means is it could potentially produce a weak tornado out of this situation. So when I look at the shear in the atmosphere, you can see how it goes from a southeast wind to a southwest wind. So it's a little, very small spot, very small, tiny target, very favorable environment on a micro scale level where you can get a tornado out of this particular area to watch for. So we would watch for that in the nowcasting period of reflectivity. So, an hour at a time, starting, when the event starts. And that's the only time you're really going to be able to see whether or not that's actually going to verify. But again, this storm by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, it still has storms through Oklahoma City, through Tulsa. A little different look than the other one. Still has stuff going through 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning as the upper level low moves through. That I don't have a problem with. Sometimes you get the wraparound effect. So it's kind of like you have to blend the two models, right? And so the truth is going to lie somewhere in the middle. Now, when we look at kind of how I thought things would evolve last night, looking at the data, and this is actually looking at last night's data, but it tells more of what makes more sense to me, meteorologically speaking. So as we head to the 7 o'clock hour, this particular model has some helicity tracks showing up here, here, here for more stronger favorable storm dynamics, which again indicates potential for some large hail, damaging winds, and yes, maybe a tornado in that region, right along I-35 and points southward. That continues to move off to the east, and then it turns into kind of a heavy rainmaker for southeast Oklahoma, but the severe weather aspect of it by midnight plus has really diminished. And so that kind of jives with what I looked at last night. This particular model is a 1 kilometer version. It's a beta testing, and it runs really late. So it ran way after I finished off the air last night, so I wasn't able to see it, but seeing it now at least tells me that what I was thinking last night made sense. When you look at this little spot here, let me go back one. It does indicate this tail end guy here might have a little bit of a helicity track too. So again, there's a couple of models that indicate that, so that's why we'll just kind of keep an eye on that area of the state as well. Okay, so we do look at the helicity tracks. In other words, we can add them all up and just max them all out on the map, just to show you how the models do favor this areas of just some rotation. Now this up here we can ignore for different reasons, but down here is where we is in the sweet spot we're talking about for ingredients. It does not include North Texas, and it should, all the way down to Dallas, and it does have this little spot right here, north and west of the metro, western Canadian County, for that other little potential there. Hail sizes, most of these are going to be in the green to yellow, which is anywhere on the scale from ½ an inch to about to golf ball size for hailstones. Now, it does get a little excited with the hail over here in eastern Oklahoma. Again, I think that's an error. I think I'd shift that back west along with this stuff. I think everything I'd just shift back west a bit. And then we're going to have pockets somewhere in there, especially south along the Red River-ish, kind of give or take a couple counties in and out of some 2-inch size hail in some of those storms. Now, the overall heavy rain with this, much higher in northern Oklahoma, up to around 1 inch plus of just good old-fashioned rainfall, moderate to heavy at times. Not a whole lot of severe weather with it, if any at all. Not looking really for much of that, but much needed beneficial drought quenching rain. Now, what the model will not be able to show you, because this is a blend, an average smooth map, what it will not show you is the trails of these supercell type storms that will come in down here in the North Texas, and each of those little trails can produce 1 inch to 2 inches of rain with them. So it won't be able to pick that up because it's not that type of a map. It's just an overall rain pattern for the event itself. But the good news is we're going to get some good rain. All right, temperatures, we've got 73 here, 44 today. So we're not going to warm too much more because the clouds have rolled in. And then we're looking at temperatures be a little cooler for Friday. So that cold front that accompanies this cold front will cool things down. And then we're back up into the 60s and 70s over the weekend. And then we're in the 60s all of next week. But you see those overnight lows, they just kind of keep dipping back down into the 30s. So if you have sensitive vegetation, you got to hold off on planting unless you're just going to protect them every night with burlap or whatever. Bring them in, garage, put them back out, whatever it may be. You're still going to have to deal with that through the end of March. And April, remember, is whenever we still have our last freezes. So technically, you're still under the gun for a late freeze as we head to the first to second week of April over most of the state from north to south. So keep that in mind. Okay, I think I've covered everything I needed to talk about. So if you don't have it yet, get my weather app. It's called AT's Weather to Go. It's free. Apple, Google Play. Just download it now. Make sure you set it to run always in the background because it triangulates your position off your GPS and your nearby cell tower so that it knows exactly where your device is so that it can send you the specific tornado warning. Because it'll actually send you a twisting storm alert, which is the warning you get before an official tornado warning from the National Weather Service. And that gives you an extra 15 minutes to seek shelter before the warning even comes out. So what does that do for you? That gives you a ton of time to get your affairs in order to seek shelter from a tornado. And it'll give you a BTI number on the scale. We talked about this last night, but the higher the number, the more certain of a tornado in that aspect of it. So keep that with you through the spring season. What else can I tell you? I think that's about it. On the bottom of these broadcasts, I'll always put on there what you should do during a tornado event and what the difference is between, say, a watch and a warning. But it's always going to be in the center part of your home or building, lowest floor, away from all outside walls and windows. And this is our welcome to tornado season here for Oklahoma for year 2022. So it's bound to happen at some point, right? So anyway. All right, so again, you can watch me live, and I do broadcasts for these weather updates. A lot of times I'll do them at 9:30 at night in the evening and also right before lunchtime when there is weather to talk about. If it's quiet, we've got California, San Diego weather. I don't do a whole lot of broadcasts for that because I'd bore you to tears and I'd be bored myself. But when we do have something to talk about that's going to affect you, it's a big story, I do broadcast for that quite often. So for this evening, I did have some plans. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to cover live the tornadoes that would occur. If those plans don't work out, then yes, I'm going to be here to cover those live for you, and I'll do that again through these same platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. If I can get Rumble going, we'll see how that goes. All right, so that is it for me. You guys be good. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Be safe this evening if you're going out and about in any concerts or outdoor plans. Just make sure you have a backup and know what to do in case you do have storms that threaten your area. All right, we will talk again soon. Be safe. Take care.